Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks for making all the efforts to come on a lovely sunny Friday afternoon. Also pleased to see that even though this is being beamed live across the world, you've all made the effort to come and listen to Zoe's inaugural Professorial. So my name's Dave Richardson, so welcome one and all. As is customary at this time, I've been gathering a few bit of snippets about Zoe's life, and it's customary to me to go through that now and give you an idea of who she is and what she means to the department. So Zoe's been a long-standing relationship with LJMU. We're going back to 1993, where she started her career in the BSc Coaching Science. I think Andy Borry, who was the programme leader at the time, has joined us in the audience. So we go back quite a long way. She continued to pursue a Masters in Sports Psychology. Dave Gilborn is also here, who was running that programme at the time. And then she took up a part-time lecturing role within the school in 1998. She continued to progress in the school and completed a PhD in 2009. And in August of 2014, she was conferred as a reader in sport exercise psychology. Subsequently to that, she was then appointed head of the Physical Activity Exchange, and then co-opted onto the school management team to be given a more strategic role. She's a highly valued and collegiate member of staff, and I think it would be fair to say that Zoe has the School of Sport and Exercise Sciences in her core. So much so that she even married Dave Richardson. But I've since come to understand and believe that there are not one Dave Richardsons in the room, there are actually 2, 3, and 4, which is pretty scary, believe. But I think Dave is also a die-hard Wigan Warriors fan, and Zoe is a die-hard Warrington Wolves fan, so I'm not quite sure how that plays out at home. But Zoe's navigated her way through the school, taking up various identities as a coach and scientist, a sports psychologist, and a reflective practitioner. She also claims that she's never done football. Her main contribution to the school and the institution is through her desire and passion to lead the external engagement agenda. As an institution, we're committed to the civic engagement. As a school, we're committed to making a difference. And Zoe has led this agenda from the front on behalf of the school. She's driven this activity since 2013. She was one of the first people in the institution to be given this the role and responsibility. And subsequently, she's been an active member of the LJMU Socio-Economic Engagement Committee and a recipient of the Vice Chancellor's Award, not once, but twice, in 2014 and 2016. There's more.
I'm itching now.
She has over 100 research outputs to her name, over 1,100 citations, and has accumulated over £420,000 worth of research and industry funding. She has 4 PhD completions and over 15 supervisory roles at present. She's also associate fellow of the British Psychological Society, a fellow of the British Association for Sport and Exercise Sciences, a fellow of the Higher Education Academy, and I think that's a fairly unique combination of prestigious positions. So at this juncture, it's often best to try and get a sense of who Zoe is from some of her colleagues and some of her students. When you do a call, it's always a good measure of somebody's collegial status within the school, depending on how much you get back from your colleagues. I've had so many responses that I've had to do a bit of content analysis. So those, if I don't mention your name in this, I have just provided some snippets to provide context, but I have a theme. Okay, so apparently you're quite particular about your cuppa.
Yeah, that is true.
So she likes the Yorkshire tea with the milk in last, with cake or chocky biscuits, as these positively correlate with productivity. She's also partial to a pint or two. Sam Downs said that.
Oh.
Sometimes you're known to have a messy kitchen. It was my first Skype meeting with Zoe just after I started my studies, so I didn't know her very well. I was frantically hiding all my children's toys lying around in the background so she wouldn't think I was terribly unorganised. As I dialed up, she answered saying, "I'll be with you in a second. I'm just hiding the washing up in the background."
Yeah.
Ever since then, I'm not pretending anymore. Zoe is always keeping it real. Despite her busy life, she always has time and energy to invest in my work. That's lethal. People-centred and always available. People are always at the centre of what she does, whether it's helping her students, her research interest, her passion for public engagement, or even delivering the annual Christmas quiz. It's so empowering for us not to only work in the department of female professor, but for us to be able to work so closely with her on our PhDs. Dynamic and tenacious.
Okay.
So Zoe is the most dynamic sports scientist I've had the pleasure and honour to work with. Zoe's passion for the discipline is always surpassed by her tenacity. Zoe's work is in public engagement, particularly with children, is exemplified by her leadership of the area, including the outstanding Welcome Trust work on face-to-face with sports science. Zoe is an inspiration to us all. That was from Greg White. He did do a video message, but I didn't want to interfere with the presentation. But I think I'll leave the final words to one of your current PhD students, which epitomises where we are today. I'm proud, really proud of being a PhD student. She's knowledgeable, supportive, famous, caring and lovely from Genley.
Yeah.
So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, my great pleasure to welcome the famous, caring and lovely Zoe Knowles.
Well, this is odd because normally on a Friday afternoon I'm just finishing the admin, getting the takeaway menus out and get ready to tune into Radio 1 dance anthems at 6 o'clock, as my colleagues in the exchange will know. So decidedly odd. So welcome to Liverpool and to LJMU if this is your first visit. It's an honour and a privilege to present to current and past colleagues, friends and family. Thank you all for coming along this evening, and for the first time at LJMU, a welcome to those joining us online in the UK and further afield across the world. As you will get to know through this presentation, I have become known for firsts. It perhaps stems from being less than accepting of a no response and a reputation for challenging conventional practice. My mum would say that this started at a very early age. My husband would say it's a trait that he lives with daily. The format for today is no exception to that of being a first. Sian is here, capturing the session in words and pictures. My children will feature as inspirations to my career and take the stage themselves for a short reading they have compiled, having been supported by Limbody. To acknowledge all of you who have attended today, wherever you are in the world, a tree will be planted in the local community forest in December, to which you are welcome to attend, or the family will capture the day and share it with you. Thanks to the Mersey Forest for supporting my idea from what started with an email to Claire Olver titled Random Request. I'll leave the thank yous there for now, as I need to get through this next 45 minutes. In view of personal challenges I have and will share, it is therefore scripted in the main. Acknowledgements are made at the end of the presentation that perhaps will be more poignant then. So my aim is to do all of these things, to outline a career journey perhaps not typical and indeed a first for LJMU, to illustrate with my personal moments, research, decisions and practice. I aim to provoke and disturb conventional thinking and invigorate and inspire academics to consider the development of our profession. For everybody in the room, I would ask you to consider not being a tree and make a commitment to try something new. All will become clear. I am the first LJMU professor to be conferred under both socio-economic engagement and academic leadership. I will spend less on the outcomes of the research and more on the pedagogy, inspiration and impact. You are of course welcome to visit these papers, links and reports mentioned today, with references listed on the final slide, which I won't show, but can be picked up on the LJMU website in due course. So if you are used to the traditional research professorial, this will be a first for you. And I sincerely hope it serves to encourage others to consider this route way at LJMU. So I've worked at LJMU since 1997-98, and this is my 21st academic year as a staff member, and 25th year at LJMU, including time as a BSc and MSc student. However, to understand the work that I do today, we need to briefly go back to the 1980s. So here we have the Penketh High School netball team in year 9. Just to point out here, the slouch socks, 2 pairs, mum. And I was drafted in for all kind of sports at school. If you were good at one, you were good at them all, from shot put to hockey, rounders to hurdles. Sport-wise, however, my passion was gymnastics, commuting from Warrington and representing the City of Liverpool Gymnastics Club and training 5 days a week. A club which now takes placements and where I support gymnasts as a sports psychologist, working there only last Friday in the small gym where I used to train. It still smells the same as it did then. This was where the enthusiasm for sport came from. I'm wondering why at times I couldn't control competition anxiety. It always seemed to get the better of me at critical times, when the practice hours were done, the routine components amongst the best, and the dance elements drilled to almost perfection through 40 minutes of ballet work daily. I remember the Liverpool multi-sport summer camps at the Iron Marsh campus, staying in the tower block that wobbled in the wind. This was one of many photos at St George's Hall as part of that event, and where today LJMU hosts a lot of its induction fairs. Perhaps the university was already destined to be part of the plan, even at that point. So we head to the 1990s, where a distinctly below par A-level performance in 1993 meant that the only tangible degree study programme on the table was an offer of turf science and golf course management from the University of Huddersfield. I don't think my dad has ever forgiven me for not taking that one up. And then came the offer of the BSc Coaching Science programme. The first intake on a new programme here at LJMU, led by Andy Borry and Don McLaren, in the first institution in the world to host a single honours degree programme in sports science, which started back in 1975. We were based in the Mountford building, where the World Museum is now today. Worth a coffee over there for anybody who wants to reminisce. The course had core coaching placements within it, and for me that was a learning experience by which I would see value in placements. It made me a better coach. It shouldn't be about all theory and exams. There was more to it, and I was on a mission to find out the what and the how. My interest in sports psychology developed working with Professor David Gilbourne. Our first encounter was when he walked into the classroom, switched on the projector and put a whiteboard pen on its screen, hollering to the class whilst looking at me. When I put my pen on that projector, that's your cue to stop talking. I still say to this day, it was not me. So a dissertation on psychological skills training by gymnastics coaches and less than 1% of a first class degree, onto sports psychology, and then a dissertation on action research working with coaches. From there, a teaching assistantship with a sterling group of individuals, including Dave Harris, Ben Edwards, Chris Bussell, Tim Donovan, and already in situ, Alison Rhodius Nee Pope, and so started a PhD journey to last 10 years. And so to the noughties, characterised simply by this phrase, all will become clear. If you don't like where you are, move. You are not a tree. Having let me into university, Andy Borry, for some unknown reason, gave me my first job working on the coaching science degree. I was working at Lilleshall, coaching elite women's gymnastics, mixing with the national squad system, and working with archery as a sports psychologist, taking over the very safe reins from Alison Rhodius. We also moved as a centre from the Mountford building to that of the Henry Cotton campus just over the way. I started to notice each year students were committing to the pathway to train to be a sports psychologist. Some were fueled by the excitement of London 2012 and what it promised for high performance sport in the UK. This was a period of time when I began to challenge. I challenged what knowledge and wisdom was needed to become a sports psychologist, to understand the ways in which practitioners in sport needed to learn, to appreciate the nuances, skills and qualities required to do this role. To take a popular quote defining knowledge and wisdom, knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting it in a fruit salad. This is a quote taken from inside the front cover of a co-authored book that I will talk about soon. But by three methods, we learn wisdom. First, by reflection, which is noblest. Second, by imitation, which is easiest. And third, by experience, which is bitterest. And so to reflective practice. A really important point for us all are the words here of John Dewey back as far as 1933, in that we don't learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience. I get asked a lot by students if they can come along and watch what I do working with athletes. I typically respond back to them with questions that focus on what they want to learn, and hopefully it includes about themselves, the client and the consultancy process, and also how they will learn. Some never reply after that, and some do, and there are a few here today who passed that initial test. So right now, I don't know whether you are reflecting on work today, five-a-side mishap last night, performance in an exam, Thursday's musical theatre class, unless you share it with me somehow. Reflection is a cognitive process, so it goes on up here. It was 14 years of research by a group of like-minded individuals, now known as Team RP, who got together to write a book, as you do, with this definition set in the early pages. It reflects, and excuse the pun, years of work establishing what the processes of reflective practice were, its purpose and outcome. And only today we've been discussing this definition with professional doctorate students as part of a workshop. For my PhD, I spent time very early on with operating theatre practitioners and teachers discussing their practice, students on the coaching science programme and professional training supervisees. I look back with incredible fondness at that time and suggest that early career researchers need more of this wider focus in their PhD and embrace talking to practitioners from day one. Reflective practice is an essential skill for the sports science practitioner. My research has developed literacy as to level of reflection, stage of reflection, assessment, evidence, and impact. Practitioners in sport tell us that they don't have time to reflect. I say make it. Our work with Anderson, now Niven, Borry, Gilbourne, Eubank, Tomlinson and Telfer led to influence supervised experience criteria for the British Association of Sport and Exercise Sciences. With now all sports scientists in the UK working through this route, attending core workshops that have been delivered to up to 500 practitioners since 2009. Brendan Cropley and Andy Miles have been here today working with our professional doctorate students, early career researchers and staff. Watch this space for work by Emma Huntley, who's on the cusp of submitting a PhD with a longitudinal focus on reflective practice with sports scientists. And I should have space from Monday to review those chapters that are inbound, Emma. Excellent. So, for over 15 years, I've been privy to understanding training and development of students in higher education through their reflective writing, particularly around placement experiences at level 6 and level 7. This annual insight into the development of students towards applied practice has been useful, and I can honestly say directly influences changes in the programmes here in the School of Sport and Exercise. The work with reflection took Team RP to a review in the Reflective Practice Journal in 2014 and a book, top 5 Routledge Sport bestseller in 2014 and available in all good retailers. And we also now started to look at different ways to facilitate and share reflection, including Think Aloud with rugby league coaches. Now, both the loyal Warrington Wolves Knowles family and the Wigan Warriors supporters, the Richardsons, haven't quite forgiven the fact that this was based at local rivals St Helens. Recent work with Jenny Lee has taken Think Aloud as a concept to that of decision-making in gymnastics judges, and therefore a full circle back to my own sport. It's important that reflective practice isn't known as a tool by psychologists for psychologists. One of the best reflective practice writers around is an exercise metabolism specialist. You know who you are, and we need to write together soon. Most recently, the BASES expert statement has been published, a recognition of almost 20 years of work and a credit to all of Team RP, from founder members, new and returning members, Andy Borry, and it's never too late for a comeback, Professor Gilbourne, you will be always welcome. Reflecting with students is a privilege, and reflecting with a purpose is key. I want to share some words from 2017 from an early career practitioner. This was almost... Okay. We've just got past the embarrassing photos, Mark, you're all right? So I'm sharing some words here of an early career practitioner from level 7. The words here could have been that of my own back in early career work back in 1998-99. Initial anxieties, tick. Calm down a bit, tick. Feeling a part of it a bit more, yes. Do they like you? I hope so. Sharing some of your placement experiences with peers and supervisors, perhaps too much. Reading the literature and reflecting, perhaps not enough. These were just some of the questions I asked myself regularly, reflecting in action as I grew and shrunk across some of the successes and lows of the placement. I can't do this now. I've done a good job here. No, I can't do this. What a huge jump from the page to the real world. Despite my peers' reassurances, why weren't these feelings of being a fraud disappearing? I'm often asked by level 4 to 7 students what I should reflect on. Where do I start as a sports psychology practitioner? And that was easy. Question your practice. There is much work to do on understanding the focus of reflection for our taught students, and I'll come back to this later. So for those of you familiar with sports science, this is Professor Gareth Stratton, and this is a corridor in the Tom Riley building at LJMU. On returning from 2 periods of maternity leave in 2005, time disappeared, sleep disappeared, health and well-being was challenged, and my week was split, half being a mum, half an academic, and at times both suffered. I was struggling with identity as an academic. Applied work at evenings, weekends, and travel was compromised. I was surviving, not thriving, whilst also in the latter stages of a PhD. I was questioning my own practice. I was told by Gareth, focus on your skills, not your discipline. What excites you? What do you care about? What worries you? And use it. The conversation took place in the corridor. The answers to those questions had changed in 18 months, from that of being at world level competitions as a sports psychologist, being effective in those environments and being a poor academic, to my kids and family, making the world for them better each day by how I contribute to it and not being there for them at key moments. So I joined the Physical Activity Exchange at an exciting time when several projects were concluding and new ones were starting, with an ambitious team wanting to explore beyond physical activity measurement and numbers to context, journeys, experience for participants, and the use of qualitative methodologies. Here at the Exchange, standards were set for PhD research, publications, and collaborative writing by Gareth and then by Stuart Fairclough, who both created a working philosophy for the PA Exchange, and which has an enviable record as regards impact and influence in policy. Most recently, this work has taken me to a role of an expert advisor to produce ISO-compatible standards for active cities, supported by the International Association for Sport for All and the International Olympic Committee. Meanwhile, in life, I want to start here. Let me tell you how I got here. This is data with an academic paper from 2016 using a technique called write, draw, show and tell, exploring where and how children were active outside of school time. On Tuesday the 3rd of November 2009, my husband's warrant officer, Class 1 Darren Chant, Sergeant Matthew Telford and Guardsman James Major, all of the 1st Battalion of the Grenadier Guards, were killed as a result of gunshot wounds sustained in an attack at a police checkpoint in the Nadiali district of Helmand Province. 2 months prior, Dave and I had celebrated Chant's wedding. I can remember the communications lockdown for days on end before I got the phone call as to what had happened whilst parked outside the childminders and ahead of a full day of teaching. The conversation was short, words mattered, words were limited, and words just didn't seem enough. So as a family, just a few weeks into Dave's 6 months tour, amongst all of that, We wrote and we did drawings to share, to understand, support and communicate through Blueies. It was here I began to understand what the children were drawing and labelling and what was important to them. A plain home, sausage in a tissue, Caitlin, conkers, Dora the Explorer, Anya, snow, all of which looked like something else and meant I had to get that information discreetly from them to make sure that Dave got it right when he rang home to speak to them. Children were doing show and tell at school, and while some mums in the playground moaned about the rush to find things to take into school on that Monday morning, for us there was always something. It was the inspiration for research that followed, exploring the words, pictures and interpretations across write, draw, show and tell. The write, draw, show and tell method provides children with control over and different ways of expression and enables deeper exploration of children's thoughts and perceptions by not limiting children to speaking alone. Write, draw, show and tell is inclusive and creates more representative and detailed perceptions on, in this particular study, out of school physical activity that perhaps would remain hidden when using traditional methods. So here we have the picture, and to show you here, so we have dad and we have brother, bro, and the participant in the study who's saying pass to me, and here we have mum. And mum, in this particular family group, spent every time they went to the park, she spent her time on her phone on Facebook and never joined in physical activity. And it was enlightening to think about ways in which we might intervene with that family in order to ensure that they were more active more often. Current PhD research is using adaptations of this, and this is a screenshot of an app that Liesl is using in conjunction with the University of Salford to collect photos, voice recording, answer questions and draw. This initial work was started back some time ago by the late Professor Lindsay Dugdale. So now I come to being a mum. I knew you'd love that photo. And then just one for your school friends as well. So what can I say about being a mum? Well, in their younger years, it was all about messy play, active play, library activities, Sure Start children's centres, tumble tot swimming lessons, afternoons on the park because nobody else played there. We had the run of it to ourselves. I was immersed in physical activity for the children, maxing out trips to IKEA, you know, where you follow the arrows and off they go, and in order to try and burn off kids' energy. I was seeing the lack of physical skills, risk-averse behaviours, parents not knowing what to do with their children, how to play in an active way in green space, and I'm resorting to the upcoming trend of play centres, which became popular, where their parents detach from their children for an hour or so. Being new to the physical activity field, I found myself advising in some meetings, not as an academic, but simply as a mum. At school, my kids were being regularly consulted on proposals that affected them, like becoming an academy, what to buy with funds, and design of school grounds. It made me realise the importance of research with and not for children, and that typical qualitative methods as one-off data collection could be challenged. So, over several studies, the research I've been involved with has shown the importance of consulting with children to inform physical activity intervention design, psychological and social determinants, using creative ways to motivate children and young people to be more active more often, and how to evaluate physical activity interventions using age-appropriate tools. I've been inspired by professional services colleague Ben Jones, who has been reporting openly on his mental health through a blog, and is speaking to university colleagues next week on this topic. For many years, I have coped with anxiety, and situations like this I feel are challenging. Most recently, I have suffered with health anxiety, which at times has been chronic and debilitating. Having a mental health issue as a psychologist was stereotypically a challenge, but it happens. It's okay not to be okay. So I tried the usual interventions and found myself working by chance with the Mersey Forest team based at Risley Moss, or Wrigley Moss, as Caitlin says. Here I was working on forest school projects and interventions in the natural environment. I met with my students, the public, who benefited from such interventions to treat mild to moderate mental health conditions and improve well-being. Indeed, it was thinking outside, no box required. Over the last 3 years, over 2,000 people have took part in Nature for Health, and our evaluation shows that on average, people who took part self-reportedly increased their levels of walking and moderate physical activity by over a third at the end of the 12 weeks. Participants also saw a significant improvement in well-being, and what was interesting about the results was that this was regardless of the type of intervention. Our findings are in line with the growing evidence that the natural environment is important to our health and well-being. Excuse me. Can't find the cursor. We'll get to Mr. Motivator in a minute. The photo here shows some level 6 students, yeah, it's okay. Some level 6 students who were involved in that intervention, and this was something that they talked about as being an oasis in their week, something that they really enjoyed taking part in, that they've since referred friends and family to, and they themselves called it sports psychology in Wellies. I should mention that the Natural Health Service team was shortlisted for a UK Active Award last month, and whilst we didn't win, at the finalist event we were photobombed by Mr. Motivator in black and gold lycra, and it's the kind of image that stays with you for some time. He's 67 apparently. For someone with health anxiety, a challenging place to be is that of a hospital, and yet research opportunities and expertise gave me privileged access to Alder Hey, Liverpool Heart and Chest Hospital, and more recently projects working with cancer patients. For those that don't know, LJMU has a fabulous forest school led by Avril Rowley, and here we are working with primary teachers in training around using the outdoors within the curriculum, from that of the outdoor classroom to the forest school. As a city centre university, forest school on our site was said to be really difficult. It's been done. And through great partnership between academic staff and professional services colleagues. So in terms of my career so far, learning from experience has been with a range of populations via many different settings and enabled by great partnerships locally to internationally, from schools to green spaces and across the physical activity to elite sport continuum. This has shaped the practitioner and researcher that I am. Each of these opportunities though, however, being a mum, a military wife and an academic, has given me planned or unplanned access to that of the public. I've watched, asked, understood and become members of such groups and found this fascinating as to the potential of sports science to work with, for and inspire change in health for these people. In 2012, I became the first public engagement lead for the school. So who are the public then? Well, it's all of us here and friends and colleagues online, our own friends and family, from those living adjacent to the campus and those tuning in wherever you are. Everyone is a member of the public. Public engagement is about mutual benefit. Public engagement has changed my mindset from that of doing research on people to that of with and for. It's brought us as a school to consider how we tell people outside of the campus about the great work we do here against a clear commitment to make a difference. Here's some examples of public engagement activity. We work very much from a multidisciplinary point of view, from local to national initiatives in museums, companies and events. We target specific populations where health needs may be greatest, and it's built on successful partnerships between the school and outside agencies. Just to point out this one here, this was an event we did last year at the World Museum against the Terracotta Warriors. So we had some MMA fighters and boxers coming in and demonstrating how they were physically trained and conditioned, and it pretty much had the same type of routine and regimen as that of the Terracotta Warriors era. And over the course of the day, nearly 3,000 people went through the exhibition and had a look at us in terms of our activity and initiatives and knew about the School of Sport and Exercise Sciences. Here's another personal example, the Perception Machine. So the Perception Machine was a project with the MA Art in Science course in conjunction with Tate Liverpool. It was a programme of live public talks with scientists supported by an archive of recorded conversation, and where I, amongst others, was asked to interpret artworks. So I was asked to interpret Goat Skull, Bottle and Candle by Picasso, a famous artwork from 1952 that was linked with the atrocities from the Korean War. Its grey tones reflect a sombre mood. Candle and skull are reminders of death. Here I talked about the reflection in the bottle, viewing the picture close up being different to that of some distance. The artwork represents, for me, critical life events, moods and challenge. The sports psychologists in the room may relate to these from practice working with athletes. By all means, tune in and have a look. Now, I'm reliably told by my children who studied Picasso at primary school that that was fundamentally wrong. And of course, my interpretation was not only wrong, it was mad. But it's a question of perception, I said. I've also been involved in a Welcome Trust project with the Parenting Science Gang. This is a Facebook live chat that goes on in the evening for parents right across the UK. And I talked through the Facebook chat about play in natural spaces. It was in the evenings, and indeed it was sports psychology in pyjamas. Citizen Science is an initiative involving members of the public working closely with research to initiate and advance scientific research projects. Our family experience of citizen science was the big bird watch, which we have done in Nana Richardson's garden for the last 3 years. This is a key quote, I think, that underpins what we do in public engagement in the school. If you can't explain something to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it yourself. This is a really important concept that we then take into developing our staff, who are supported to develop skills in science communication, from that of their literacy to the design of activities to explain the complex wonders of sports science in simple terms. Our work with school has taken us to the Royal Society Partnership Scheme, the Big Bang, the European Space Agency and the UK Space Agency. I'm pleased to announce exciting developments with Eureka Mersey, due to open in 2022. Eureka Mersey will be an innovative blending of the much-loved and extraordinary playful learning experiences associated with the Eureka brand with cutting-edge 21st century science and Discovery Centre innovation. Sport and Exercise Science is working with Eureka in July to work with Year 8 pupils in a Dragon's Den style event. It's sparking tremendous creativity amongst our staff, as does happen out of term time, and I'm looking forward to seeing the pictures from our staff in July. Next week we have the first event targeting girls into STEM subjects. Myself and Matt Andrew are running, called Here Comes the Girls, the Future of Sport and Exercise Science, and we hope to see that grow and involve teachers and pupils right from across the Northwest over the next few years. So I think the key message here is that sport and exercise science provides a backdrop for engaging with the public on topics of health. To conclude, before the thank yous, I want to summarise and challenge through each of these points that I've covered. First of all, focusing on the person behind the research and practice. I'd ask all the researchers in the room, what do you really care about? Could this influence your research and practice, your direction, your next career decision, and for everybody in the room, your choices for what you do tomorrow? As a field, consider that conferences and CPD aren't always accessible to all. We can share in different innovative ways and inclusive ways, just like we've done today with the first live stream of the professorial lecture. Why not try a new skill? Why not try dancing? Why not volunteer? Why not learn a language? Why not work with new contexts and populations? As we grow as academics, maybe we lose the ability to understand how people learn. I would say challenge yourselves. So to students and their learning, we need to work on curriculum placements at level 6 and 7 to ensure students are adequately prepared for professional training. The role of reflection in that process is key, and it evidences means by which we can check in with the learning experiences of students beyond metrics. We can generate narratives and explore experience over time. I would also ask that educators need to influence throughout the learning journey with innovation from the sector and beyond. An example of the entrepreneurial education in the Applied Sports Psychology programme is just that. So for public engagement, who are our publics? Let's consider what public engagement means for our discipline. Let's do it. Let's share it, and let's reward public engagement. And it should be part of the fabric and development from students to established academics and practitioners. Let's do more to influence the female scientists of the future. And the last one, more from trees. I would say it's okay not to be okay. Let's look at the potential of the natural environment to influence psychological well-being and improve our immediate environment as a university. I've been pleased to work on projects for the Byron Green Up initiative, and long may the collaborations continue between professional services staff, and watch out for the raised beds, mini allotments and hanging baskets coming to an office near you. And in terms of not being a tree, if you don't like where you are, move. You are simply not a tree. I'd like to hand over to these fabulous two, Anya and Caitlin, who've been working with Lynn. And I haven't got a tissue, so if anybody's got one, pass it forward.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today in recognition of our mum's professorship. Today we would like to dedicate this speech to our amazing mum. We are extremely proud of her for receiving her professorship, which is just one of the many reasons why we look up to her.
In the science industry, there are many stereotypes, one of them being that all professors are male, and a woman professor is unheard of. However, for many other women around the world, like our mum, this has not stopped them from reaching for and achieving this goal.
The amount of hard work and dedication that our mum puts into her work does not go unnoticed, and it makes us want to have the same attitude towards our work and hobbies, whether that be school, dance or gymnastics.
As well as watching our mum at work, we have also been able to be part of it and have a look at what it is actually like being a sports scientist and how much time actually goes into it.
Me and my sister were lucky enough to participate in some of the experiments that my mum, work colleagues and her students do. For example, we have done a VO2 max experiment and appeared in some short films to show in schools across the North West about the work they do at Liverpool John Moores University.
By doing this, we understand how hard this job is, but also how rewarding it is. No words can describe how proud we are of you, Mum, and you deserve this more than anyone.
This has also been a proud moment for the family, and we know that if Nan was here with us today, she would be incredibly proud of you and how far you have come throughout your career.
We are so lucky to have you because you're the best mum we could ask for, even if we don't show it sometimes and we don't say it enough. We also want to say thank you for everything you do for us outside of work and for supporting everything we do and for providing us with so many amazing opportunities.
And a final thank you for being our role model and inspiring us in so many different ways. So congratulations, Mum. We are so incredibly proud of you and we love you to the moon and back a million times. Thank you for listening.
So now I need to get to my thank yous. This is why I left it to the end. I'm just going to check this works, Liam, because there's quite a few. I can't find the cursor on this.
You got it?
Where's it? I can get my notes. Grab my notes.
Let me just see. That might be it now. There we are. All right.
Well, that's allowed me to get my head together. So, I'm going to read this in a wanna. I want to thank LJMU academic staff in Sport and Exercise Sciences, Amy, Avril, Lisa, Kay and Lorna in EHC, Mark Ruffley in the School of Art and Design and the Women's Professors Network, colleagues at BASES, for who I am proud to be BASES Division of Psychology Chair, the Mersey Forest, placement providers and Eureka Mersey. To Andy and Don for letting me into university in the first place, and Dave Gilbourne, a true academic, mentor, inspiration and research trendsetter. I don't think he would like that term, but there we are. Alison Rodius for supervision towards accreditation and applied work. We will visit you soon, I promise. Gareth Stratton and Stuart for leadership and support over the last 10 years, and in particular physical activity exchange colleagues, and to Lynn for her friendship as our families have grown up and the stories and laughs that we have shared so far. Long may they continue. Team RP, the founder members, Hamish, Andy, Dave and Elsa, and all those that have joined us on the way. Brendan, Emma, Andy Miles for today's session. I'm glad the fancy dress didn't manifest Dr. Miles. To Barry for getting the professional doctorate programme up and running and creating a community of brilliant minds and practitioners with whom it's a pleasure to work. To PLSU staff, Claire Coombs, Jan Burrell, Amy Gerard, Bernadette McGrath and Jane Townend from Professional Services, and Isabel Smith, a former work colleague, lifelong friend and godmother to Caitlin. Phil Vickerman and Keith George for supporting my applications and adding the rah-rah and pom-poms when doubts were there for conferment. You were so right. To all the students I've had the pleasure and privilege to work with, you inspire me with your work and enthusiasm. Keep up the writing, you're all doing great. Just get it to me by the 19th of July, or that's it till September the 3rd. To the dance, gymnastics, guides, mums and dads here, and Anya and Caitlin's teammates who came to support them today. We survive on a week-to-week basis during term time with our lifts, organisation and tasks. Quite easily the most coordinated logistics and planning operation ever. You're all awesome. To my family, our gorgeous Anya and Caitlin, who in the last few weeks have raised hundreds of pounds for St Rocco's Hospice, where my late Nana volunteered for 25 years. They also coach young dancers and gymnasts each week and make me proud every day. Mum and Dad, Steve and Martin and their families. It's been a difficult few years for us, I know, but here we all are. Thank you, Katie, a wonderful stepdaughter, Clive, Margot, Nikki and Stu for all your advice, care, DIY and IT services along the way. Finally, to Dave, the most patient man on the planet. I also want to acknowledge those who couldn't be with us today. Professor Lindsay Dugdale, my nan, and Rowena Hansen, all of whom have played a significant role in my academic and family life. They did so in their own unique ways, having great enthusiasm for what I did. I'm amongst many who miss you dearly, and I know all three of you would be proud today. Thank you.